The entertaining story begins by showcasing a rehab center where patients were brought in to overcome their addictions. These could be addictions to drugs or anything else. At this place, we meet a girl named Darby, who had fallen into the grip of drug addiction. Darby had been staying in the rehab center for several months and was showing significant improvement. She no longer craved any type of drugs and was trying to live her life in a better way. However, suddenly, she received a call informing her that her mother had been admitted to a hospital in a nearby city after suffering a minor heart attack. Her mother's condition was critical, which made Darby extremely worried. She insisted that she needed to be by her mother's side because she didn't know if her mother would survive. In this critical situation, Darby felt it was imperative to stay with her. When Darby shared this with the rehab center authorities, they suspected she was making up excuses to leave and resume her addiction. As a result, they denied her request and informed her that she couldn't leave until her contract was over. This decision upset Darby deeply, and her concern for her mother grew even stronger. Determined to see her mother, Darby devised a plan to escape the rehab center at night. She wasn't thinking about drugs at all, her only focus was on her mother. Late at night, seizing the opportunity, Darby managed to escape from the rehab center, took a car, and began driving through the snowy night toward the nearby city. The snowfall was heavy, and Darby was in a rush to reach her destination. Soon, she encountered a police officer who stopped her and informed her that the road ahead was blocked due to snow and would remain closed until it could be cleared the following morning. The officer suggested that Darby spend the night at a nearby hotel and resume her journey in the morning. With no other choice, Darby went to the hotel the officer had mentioned. Inside the hotel, there were already a few people present. Among them was a man named Ash, another named Ben, and a couple who appeared to be soldiers. All of them were behaving strangely, as if they were hiding some dangerous secret. Darby decides to stay there for the time being, trying her best to contact her mother or the hospital. However, due to a lack of signal in the area, she is unable to connect. Realizing she would have to spend the night at the hotel, Darby kept checking around to find a spot with a signal. When she went near her car, she noticed another van parked nearby. To her shock, she discovered that a child had been kidnapped and was being held inside the van. Darby was alarmed and realized that one of the people inside the hotel must be responsible for this. Fearing for her safety, she got back into her car, intending to leave the area. Just then, the soldier approached her and asked if she had managed to get a signal. Darby couldn't directly confront him about what she had seen, so instead, she returned to the house. The soldier found Darby's behavior a little suspicious but didn't press further. To pass the time, he started playing cards with everyone. Meanwhile, Darby focused on observing everyone's behavior to identify who the kidnapper could be. After carefully analyzing, she realized it was likely Ben, as he had the keys to the van. Darby rushed to the restroom and tried to inform the police about everything she had discovered. Unfortunately, due to the lack of signal, none of her messages were sent. Spotting an opportunity, Darby sneaked out and approached the van to rescue the child. However, before she could free the child, Ben entered the van, forcing Darby to hide inside. Ben began speaking to the child, trying to calm her down by saying they would soon reach her uncle, after which everything would be fine. The little girl, frightened and crying, couldn't be consoled. After a while, Ben left the van. Darby tried her best to free the child but couldn't succeed. Frustrated and determined, she returned to the restroom to figure out another way to seek help. A while later, Ben returned to the area and noticed footprints leading to the restroom. This made him suspicious that someone might have discovered their secret. Ben started heading toward the restroom to investigate, but Darby was already aware of the danger. Inside the restroom, Darby heard Ash asking from outside, "Who's in there?" Thinking quickly, Darby pulled Ash inside and said, "I need your help. That man Ben has kidnapped a girl, and we need to save her no matter what." Ash seemed alarmed but asked her, "Did you call the police?" Darby explained, "I tried, but I couldn't connect due to the poor network." By this time, Ben was nearing the restroom, so Darby, in a desperate move, kissed Ash to make it appear like nothing suspicious was happening. Seeing this, Ben left the area, apparently convinced. Ash then proposed a plan to Darby. "Go near the van. When Ben comes after you, I'll attack him from behind, and then we can escape," he said. Trusting him, Darby sneaked to the van and managed to free the little girl inside. However, the girl asked a chilling question: "Where are the two kidnappers now?" Darby suddenly realized the truth: Ash and Ben were working together. She had made a grave mistake by trusting Ash. Moments later, Ash and Ben approached the van, guns in hand, but when they opened the van door, they found the girl missing. Darby had already taken her back to the restroom. Panicked, Darby locked herself and the girl inside the restroom. Ben and Ash, now armed, followed them. Ash threatened Darby, saying, "If you tell anyone about this, I'll kill you." He then revealed the real motive behind the kidnapping. Ash and Ben were brothers who had abducted the girl because her father was very wealthy. They planned to demand a large ransom for her safe return. While Darby was trapped in the restroom, the soldier's wife, a nurse, entered unexpectedly. Ash quickly hid his gun and pretended to kiss Darby, creating the illusion of a romantic moment. The nurse seemed convinced, thinking the two might have feelings for each other. To avoid raising suspicion, Ash, Darby, and the nurse exited the restroom and joined everyone else in the hall. Darby, knowing the entire truth, felt trapped and terrified. She desperately wanted to alert the soldier and the nurse but couldn't figure out how to do so without putting herself and the little girl in danger. Because both brothers had guns, Darby realized that any scuffle could result in someone getting seriously hurt, or even killed. Suddenly, Darby noticed through the window that the little girl had managed to free herself from the van. Ash also saw this and immediately instructed his brother, Ben, to go outside and catch the girl. Darby knew she couldn't just sit still. She quickly made her way to the restroom, but Ash followed her there shortly after. As soon as he entered, Darby attacked him from behind, landing several blows. However, Ash, being physically stronger, overpowered her and grabbed her tightly, leaving her helpless. Meanwhile, Ben returned, frustrated, and informed Ash that the girl had run off into the forest. "If we shout for her, she'll never come out," he reasoned. The brothers decided to take Darby with them into the forest, thinking they could use her to lure the girl out. They assumed the girl might respond to Darby's voice and reveal herself. With this plan in mind, Ash and Ben pointed their guns at Darby and forced her to walk into the forest with them. While walking, Ash casually revealed that their boss was part of a larger illegal operation. He explained how they kidnapped the children of rich families and demanded hefty ransoms, making their operation extremely lucrative. Darby, horrified by this revelation, realized she needed to act. Seizing a moment of distraction, she used her flashlight to blind the brothers temporarily and then jumped down from a small ledge. Though the fall injured her, she knew she had to keep moving. Ben and Ash, furious, started firing their guns, but Darby used the trees for cover and slowly made her way deeper into the forest. Back at the hotel, the soldier and his nurse wife heard the gunshots and came outside to investigate. They found the kidnapped little girl lying nearby, weak and barely breathing. The nurse immediately realized the girl was in critical condition and told her husband, "She needs urgent medical attention, or she won't survive." They brought the girl inside the hotel and started administering basic care. Shortly after, Darby, battered and bruised but determined, managed to reach the hotel. She informed the soldier and nurse about everything, the brothers, their weapons, and the illegal kidnapping operation. Darby, realizing the urgency of the situation, explained everything to the soldier and his wife. Ben and Ash were the kidnappers, and they had weapons. Darby warned them that under no circumstances should the kidnappers be allowed inside. The soldier immediately secured all the windows and doors to prepare for their defense. Meanwhile, Ben and Ash noticed the girl was inside the house. Armed with guns, they began trying to break in. The soldier confronted them through the barricaded door, telling them to leave immediately. Ben, however, yelled back, claiming that the girl had a severe illness and needed specific medication that only they had. If she didn't get the medicine on time, her life would be in danger. Despite their threats, the soldier refused to hand over the girl, knowing they couldn't be trusted. Sensing the tension, Darby came up with a plan. She told Ben and Ash that she had their car keys. If they handed over the medication, she would return their keys, knowing full well that without the car, they couldn't escape. Ben and Ash checked their pockets and realized their keys were indeed missing, but they weren't ready to give up so easily. Instead, they siphoned petrol from their vehicle and began pouring it around the house, planning to set it on fire. Their intention was clear: they were willing to burn everyone alive, including the girl, to cover their tracks. Inside, the nurse, terrified by the escalating situation, begged her husband to hand over the child to Ben and Ash. "If we don't, we're all going to die," she cried. But the soldier refused, adamant about protecting the girl. He gave Darby both sets of car keys and instructed her to hide them somewhere safe. He also handed her some tools, including a hammer, for her protection. Outside, the brothers prepared to ignite the gasoline, showing no fear or hesitation. The tension inside the house grew. The nurse continued to plead with her husband, fearing for their lives. Suddenly, the little girl, who had been unconscious, woke up. Miraculously, she seemed to be recovering. She looked at the nurse and recognized her immediately. This moment unraveled a shocking truth. The nurse wasn't just a bystander, she was part of the entire kidnapping plot. The girl revealed that the nurse had visited her home in the past as a caretaker, a connection that now made sense. The nurse, realizing her cover was blown, quickly turned to Ben and Ash, informing them, "My husband doesn't have a gun." The betrayal left everyone stunned, especially the soldier, who now faced not only the external threat of the kidnappers but also the internal treachery of his wife. Darby, despite being in immense pain, refused to reveal where she had hidden the car keys. She knew that giving up the keys would doom the child and herself. Ash and Ben, now more desperate and furious, continued their assault. The house was filled with tension, and every passing moment felt like a battle for survival. The nurse, who had initially supported the kidnappers for financial gain, now lay lifeless on the floor, and her husband, the soldier, had paid the ultimate price for trying to protect the innocent. It was a grim reminder of how far greed and desperation could lead people. Ash, blinded by his rage, underestimated Darby's resilience. In a moment of sheer willpower, Darby used a shard of broken glass from the floor to defend herself. She stabbed Ash in the leg, causing him to stumble back in pain. Ben rushed toward her, but Darby, with quick thinking, threw a nearby chair at him, buying herself a few precious seconds. She crawled toward the living room, grabbing one of the tools the soldier had given her earlier. As Ash and Ben regrouped, Darby managed to position herself near the front door. The keys were hidden in a small vent nearby, but she knew retrieving them now would be suicide. Instead, she planned to use the chaos to her advantage. Ash and Ben advanced toward her, guns drawn. Darby suddenly threw a lit candle onto the gasoline they had spilled earlier, creating a small but fierce fire near the entrance. The flames spread quickly, forcing Ash and Ben to step back. This gave Darby the opportunity she needed. She grabbed a hammer and struck Ben hard on the head, knocking him unconscious. Ash, enraged, fired his gun wildly, but Darby managed to dodge the bullets and ran toward the vent. She pulled out the keys and bolted toward the kidnappers' van. Ash, still recovering from the chaos, chased after her. Darby managed to start the van, but just as she was about to drive away, Ash grabbed onto the door, trying to pull her out. Darby fought back with all her strength, slamming the door on Ash's arm repeatedly until he let go. She then floored the gas pedal, driving straight toward the forest. The kidnapped girl was still in the house, and Darby knew she couldn't leave her behind. Circling back, she drove the van through the front of the burning house, creating an opening. She ran inside, found the girl, and carried her out. Ash, still relentless, appeared again, gun in hand. But Darby, using her last ounce of strength, hit him with the van, pinning him against a tree. With Ash and Ben defeated, Darby and the girl finally drove away, leaving the chaos behind. She found a spot with cell service and called the authorities, explaining everything that had happened. In the end, Darby's courage and determination saved the child's life, though it came at a great cost. The experience left her scarred, but she emerged stronger, knowing she had done the right thing, even in the face of unimaginable odds. Darby endured the pain in every possible way, solely for the sake of the little girl. Ben and Ash were relentlessly harming her without a second thought. At one point, Darby managed to spray pepper spray into Ben's eyes, rendering him unable to see. Ash then helped his brother and sister by taking Ben to the washroom to recover. Meanwhile, Darby still had a nail embedded in her hand, causing her immense pain. However, she called the little girl over, who had regained consciousness. With great courage, the little girl managed to bring a hammer to Darby, giving her a weapon to protect herself. Darby held the little girl close and reassured her that they would make it out safely. Ash helped Ben recover and brought him back outside. However, Ash was furious at Darby for interfering with their plan. He believed that if she hadn't intervened, they would have successfully kidnapped the girl and escaped. Ash took Darby's phone, which had just received a message. Reading it aloud, he cruelly informed Darby that her sick mother had passed away from a major heart attack. Despite her deep sorrow, Darby focused on surviving and protecting the little girl. A fortunate turn of events occurred when the messages Darby had sent to the police earlier finally went through due to regained network connectivity. The police were now aware of their location. Realizing this, Ash and Ben understood that the authorities would arrive soon. In a fit of rage, Ash demanded Darby hand over the car keys, which she had hidden earlier. Darby, determined not to reveal their location, refused. Enraged, Ash grabbed the little girl and threatened to shoot her hand with the nail gun unless Darby disclosed the keys' whereabouts. Ben tried to stop Ash, arguing that they needed to deliver the little girl safely to her parents as planned, but Ash ignored his brother's pleas and prepared to carry out his threat. Then, with no other option, Darby reveals the location of the keys to Ash. Ash quickly leaves to retrieve the keys, handing his gun to his brother Ben and instructing him to shoot them if he suspects anything. Ben looked terrified throughout the process because he feared getting caught by the police, having already spent years in prison. Ash goes to the location to get the keys. Meanwhile, Darby tells the little girl to turn off the lights. The girl hesitated at first, scared because Ben had a gun. Darby reassured her, explaining that Ben was too frightened to attack her. After much persuasion, the little girl slowly stands up and begins walking toward the light switch. Ben urges her to sit down, but the fear inside the little girl seems to have disappeared. She quickly moves forward and turns off the lights. Darkness envelopes the entire house. Using a hammer, Darby removes the nail from her hand. As soon as the lights come back on, she approaches her sister and hits her on the head with the hammer. Her sister is gravely injured. Hearing gunshots from inside, Ash rushes back with the car keys. When Ash enters with the nail gun, he finds Darby pointing a gun at his brother. She threatens to shoot him if he comes any closer. Ash, desperate, tries to control the situation but is powerless. Just as he is about to shoot, the little girl appears and accidentally strikes Ash with the hammer, causing a nail to fly out and hit Ben squarely on the head. Ben falls unconscious, his memory fading rapidly. Ash immediately tries to take care of his injured brother. Darby, meanwhile, takes the little girl and moves toward the exit. Ash desperately tries to comfort his brother, assuring him that he'll save him. However, as Ben attempts to move forward, he slips and falls headfirst, with the nail piercing deeply into his skull. Ben dies in a tragic and painful manner. Ash is left helpless, unable to do anything in the midst of the chaos. And now, in a fit of intense anger, Ash retrieves the nail gun from outside and starts firing continuously at Darby and the little girl. Darby, along with the little girl, tries to get into the car to escape, but due to the constant firing, the tires have completely burst. The car crashes into a pole, leaving both Darby and the little girl severely injured. Ash, wielding the gun, advances toward Darby to shoot her. However, shortly after, a police officer arrives, trying to assess the situation. Darby, seeing the officer, gains a bit of confidence and uses the gun she has to fire directly at Ash. The bullet hits Ash in the shoulder, causing him to fall to the ground. The police officer, however, misunderstands the situation and believes Darby to be a criminal who has started shooting people. Despite Darby's attempts to explain that it was Ash and the kidnappers who were the criminals, the officer is about to shoot her. As the officer fires, Darby, though injured, manages to grab a small tool nearby and makes a swift attack on the officer's throat. The officer dies instantly. With the officer's body nearby, Darby struggles to move, and despite her injuries, she somehow manages to use the radio to call for help. Her condition is critical, and she eventually loses consciousness at the scene. A few days later, we see Darby back at a rehabilitation center. Her treatment has resumed, and she is working on recovery. Darby's life has taken a new turn. She has completely given up on substance abuse and no longer thinks about it. She receives a drawing from the little girl, expressing gratitude for saving her life from the kidnappers. This event has left a lasting impact on Darby's life, making her realize the importance of staying away from harmful influences. She had come out of the clutches of death, which made her cherish her life even more. Darby decided to live it in the most meaningful and joyful way possible. We then see Darby's sister visiting her. When Darby sees her, she becomes extremely happy because no family member had come to visit her during this time. She had saved the life of a little girl, and this news spreads throughout the region, giving Darby considerable recognition. Her bravery and kindness bring her immense respect and fame, making the future look promising for her. This survival story ends here,